Have you ever gone on a diet to lose weight and been successful? Maybe you lost a few pounds, or maybe you got all the way to your goal weight, only to gain the weight back in just a few years or even a few months? Well, if that's been you, you're not alone. Maybe you've seen the sobering statistics like 90% of dieters gain back the weight they lost within a year. And that begs the question, why is it so hard not just to lose the weight, but to actually keep it off, even when you're doing everything right? So today, I'm speaking to a doctor who for over 15 years has been performing bariatric surgery, leads a weight loss clinic, and has served as a member of the American Board of Obesity Medicine to find out not just why it's so hard, but what you can do about it. Welcome to Change Made Easy. Changing your habits, routines, and behaviors is hard. We make it easy. I'm Paul Leviton, and I help high achievers just like you who feel stuck bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Traditional self-help doesn't work. It's either too rigid, too generic, or too overwhelming. My approach is different. I simplify change by making it so easy it can't not happen. Using my easier framework, I'll help you create habits, routines, and behaviors that stick for good, so you can stop struggling and start thriving. It's that easy. Whether you're frustrated with your own inconsistent results, or you're wondering why willpower never seems to be enough, this episode with Dr. Pavi Kundhal is just for you. Today we go way deeper than just what you need to eat or how you should exercise if you truly want to lose weight and keep it off. And Dr. Kundhal breaks it all down, from the subconscious eating patterns to the hidden forces shaping your health decisions, and how you can finally take back control. Dr. Pavi Kundhal is a bariatric surgeon and obesity specialist with nearly 2 decades of experience helping patients achieve long-term health transformations. Through both clinical work and coaching, he helps people navigate the systemic, emotional, and behavioral challenges that make change so hard, and shows them how to start small but create massive results. In this episode, we explore why 100 calories is never just 100 calories, and how the compounding effects of micro habits can work both for you or against you. Pavi also shares an important reframe for understanding emotional eating as an unconscious search for control. We discuss the broccoli test, or how you can understand real hunger versus cravings, and he explains the importance of doing the true, deep, transformational work that many people try to avoid. We also discuss GLP medications like Ozempic, what they do, who they help, and why they might not be the magic fix you're after. So if you've ever struggled with foods, habits, or feeling stuck in cycles that never seem to end, this conversation is going to help you move forward and move forward for good. With that, please enjoy this conversation with Dr. Pavi Kundhal. Why is there an obesity epidemic in the Western world?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. I think the answer is it's multifactorial, but I think we've all seen pictures from like the 40s and 50s and 60s, 70s. You see the beach photos where everyone looked, in some ways, everyone looked more healthy in a way. So I think there's a lot of societal factors that have contributed to the propensity of people gaining weight. So we talk about the obesogenic environment, so the things within people's environment that almost enables them to gain weight. So, like for example, today now with all the technological apps, the delivery apps like Uber Eats just make it so easy to order anything you want 24/7. You don't even burn the calories now putting your clothes on, going to the car, driving, waiting, etc., even walking for pickup. So even that's an example of something where we're kind of being encouraged to be less active, more sedentary, burning less calories in our daily life. And I also think we need to talk broader too about the type of food we have access to. And so if you live in an urban setting, like I'm in the greater Toronto area and you're in New York, it can sometimes be very difficult to source organic, real food, if you want to call it that. A lot of the times we're eating processed foods, mass manufactured foods. They're calorie dense, easy to prepare, but not very nutritious. And I think that's a function of our life too. Like there's been a real breakdown in the separation between work and personal life. People have to be on 24/7. There's no time to prepare food. So they just want to get TV dinners or fast food. And I think that's translating, that's kind of behaviors are being learned now by our children. So I think that's why this is just keeps happening and happening.
I am so pumped to tell you about my partnership with My Body Tutor. My Body Tutor is the world's leading nutrition coaching platform that helps people find their healthy weight and keep it forever through sustainable habit change. If you listen to this show, you know that we do not suffer from a lack of information. Most people know what they need to change. The problem is actually sticking to it long enough to see results. When it comes to diet, exercise, and getting in shape, My Body Tutor solves this problem by giving you customized plans, one on one coaching, and daily accountability. As a bonus for you, they are offering $50 off your first month. What makes My Body Tutor so unique is they offer daily accountability with a real human coach. That's someone to check in with you, talk to, plan with, someone who can help you when things are going hard. It's not ChatGPT, it's not some algorithm. This is a real human. I know because I'm one of them. I have been working with My Body Tutor as one of their tutors since 2020. With so much nonsense and misinformation and just bad actors out in the health and wellness space, My Body Tutor is helping people the real way. They are changing lives. I've seen it firsthand, and I'm honored to be a part of it. Check out mybodytutor.com, where you can see hundreds of testimonials and reviews. And remember, listeners of this show get $50 off their first month. Just click the link in the show notes or go to mybodytutor.com and tell them Paul from Change Made Easy sent you in your intake questionnaire, and you'll automatically get a huge discount. On top of that, they offer a money-back, risk-free guarantee, so this is really a no-brainer. And like I said, I really do work for them. So if you've ever wanted to work with me personally, you can even request to have me as your body tutor. How cool would that be? Once again, just say Paul sent you and get $50 off your first month, start with no risk, and see how the power of a coach with daily accountability can literally change your life.
I love that. Thank you for that answer. I want to kind of dive into each of those individual pieces. I love that term obesogenic environment. Something that my listeners know I talk about all the time is the power of environment. I am a certified nutrition coach for 15 years now or something like that. And I always remember when I did my first nutrition certification, the guy who created it, Dr. John Berardi, but he said the first law of nutrition is if it's in my house, I or someone I love will eat this thing. And then the second law of nutrition is if I don't want to eat something, I don't bring it in my house. And
Correct.
it points to or speaks to the power of the environment. What's close to us is easier to do, and that's what we end up doing. But then we get the broader issue of, as you just said, well, sometimes we live in cities where it isn't readily available, or we live in places that even if I have the goal of getting more healthy stuff, they don't have it in the grocery store near me. So now that brings me to the question of everything you said when I asked you, why do we have an obesity epidemic? You pointed to societal systemic challenges. And yet I found, again, I work in this space and I talk to people all the time about this, that when we look for solutions, solutions are usually geared at an individual level. Willpower, discipline, diet, exercise. So is it possible for an individual to defeat all of this societally imposed gravity that's pulling them down?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So sometimes people say, well, we need to come up with society solutions. Society solutions don't happen quickly. They have to be done through legislation, elections, fundamentally changing economies, because there are lots of who stand to gain from things staying the same way and people who stand to lose. So in that situation, those can be very difficult. So you have to adapt your life to the here and now. This is our reality. We live for short periods of time, relatively speaking. A lot of these changes take decades, so you have to kind of do what you can now. So I think the first step is understanding that there are weight gain enablers, and some of them are subconscious. They're not obvious, but they're working against you. So I think that once you become aware, that empowers you, and then you can actually start making conscious decisions to try to improve. And I'm a big believer in small changes. I think that small changes that become habits, they compound into big results. So I think like if you start saying, I'm just going to cut this out, I'm going to go cold turkey, never eat it again, never going to have a treat, you may be able to do that off willpower for about a week, but then eventually you're going to have those moments of weakness. All of us have stress in life. We have things. So you have to kind of pick small things, but do them consistently. So make small changes in your environment. So that may be a lot of us when we're stressed out, we've had a long day at work, we've been commuting on the car, subway, whatever it is, we're tired. We go to comfort foods because we want to have control of something. So we reach for something. So maybe instead of having unhealthy foods, have pre-cut fruits and vegetables at eye level in the fridge or on the counter. And then even at work, a small thing is don't leave chocolates or chips or candies on your work desk. Have nuts. Have something else that if you do need a snack, it's nutritious and filling. Those small changes, they don't sound like much, but if you take out 100 calories a day, that's a pound a month. That turns into something big over a year. And that's much more sustainable. So I do think like if you're cognizant of what's going on around you, deleting the phone apps, those small things, even those small changes, they may not fully compensate for everything, but you will see benefits.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I'm big on all the exact same thing. Small habits layered over time. This is the strategy that I use with all my clients, everyone that I work with. All the all the past episodes of the show are all building on that, and I think that, as you said, I agree that unfortunately, although these are big societal issues, we can't wait and sip and hope and twiddle our thumbs until these things are changed. As you said, this is decades. It might be your kids or your kids' kids who see some meaningful change in this area. So unfortunately, for better or for worse, that puts the onus back on us to create the change. And as you said, awareness is the first step. Understanding that this is what I'm up against. The deck is stacked against me. The game is rigged, if you want to look at it that way. As you said, many people have a lot to profit or to gain from keeping things this way, keeping the status quo as is. And that's the starting point. That's where we start off at. And that's why this podcast is Change Made Easy, because now with all of that stacked against me, the only way that I've seen that can help people to create real sustainable change is to make it so much easier rather than, as you said, just saying, I'm never going to eat a carb again, or I'm going to work out 7 days a week, or whatever this big, giant, daunting task is that inherently we end up saying, screw this eventually, and we push it away. But as you were speaking there, something that you mentioned was that there are challenges that we can get overwhelmed with, or we can kind of break them down small enough. But something that I know people struggle with is saying, well, like you just said, 100 calories. 100 calories is feels like it's nothing, but with enough time, it becomes something. But is there a level that is too small and that we then are wasting our time or actually not getting any benefit when we're talking about creating this change in our nutrition and our habits? Or is it like no matter what, something counts?
I'm of the view that when you get started, you need to focus on small victories. Because let's say that you need to lose a significant amount of weight. Let's say it's 50, 60 pounds, which is a lot for anyone. It's very easy to say, well, that's too much. There's no realistic path forward. I can't do it. And then you'll just say, what's the point? It's going to be like every other time. There's that saying that to move a mountain, you start moving a single stone. So you have to just start, and whatever that is, and then embrace it. So it may be I'm going to start walking to the supermarket and get the milk, and start introducing that small activity, and say just make the commitment that when I need to buy something, if it's reasonable to walk, weather permitting, I'm going to do it. I'm going to park the car a few blocks away from work. I'm going to start taking the stairs if I'm able to. All these small things, they compound, and if you kind of focus, you focus on the process. I tell people I work with, my patients, whoever, like, don't focus on the goal. Focus on the process. It's a common concept in athletics. They'll tell the players, do your job. And then they say, and then they'll say, well, what about winning? We don't worry about winning. If everyone does their job, we'll likely win. So you kind of got to just say, what are the things that I'm going to focus on? So the process, maybe I want to walk more every day. I want to I want to snack less. I want to become a mindful eater. I want to understand why I'm eating. What is really driving me to eat? Am I eating because I'm stressed out, bored, or am I truly eating because I'm hungry and my body needs energy? And maybe your process will be after I eat, I'll try to reflect on why did I actually eat and how do I feel? And then what happens then is if you keep doing that consistently, that's your process. You're not judging yourself, but you're just going through that process of trying to understand why you're doing what you're doing. I think often we're all intelligent people. It starts to hit you. You know what? I'm eating because I'm stressed out, not, and I don't feel good after. And I think when you recognize that and you kind of stick to processes, that's where I think lasting change comes. And I'm not trying to say that change is easy. It's not easy, right? It's very easy to continue doing the things we've always done because it doesn't require it. It's automatic. It's unconscious. It doesn't require necessarily effort. And they say change is painful. It is painful in the beginning because you're doing something that may not initially give you comfort. And start small. Saying that I'm going to do 10 things a day is not realistic. Pick one or two actionable things and then just focus on doing them. And then once they become part of who you are, then you can start introducing more things.
Yeah, totally. Process over progress is how I put it, and inputs that drive outputs. So, and the reason that that's so important for those listening is because that is what is within your control. You
Yes.
can control what you do. You can't control what happens as a result of that. So I can
Yes.
control the food I put in my mouth, the exercise I do, the steps that I take. I can't control what the scale says the next morning, but I
Correct.
can trust that, as you said, with a sports team, if everyone does their job, the wins come. I don't have to focus on the win because that is the logical end result of everyone doing what they're supposed to do. And it's the same with health and fitness. If you do the things you're supposed to do, if you get steps, if you eat more nutritious whole foods, if you exercise, all these different things that we know to be impactful, we can assume with a fair amount of certainty that we're going to get the result. It might not be in the specific time frame that you had in mind. So sometimes it's slower, sometimes it's faster. Usually it's slower. But the point is that you focus on what you can control. And I like that you said a good place to start is to think about the reasoning behind what we're eating and why. And something that you had said earlier that I took note of that I want to bring up again is you kind of said this quickly, but it made me think. You said that often we're rushing home, we're on the subway, we're in our car, whatever, and we're eating something maybe less nutritious or eating whatever. You said for a sense of control. Can you explain what you meant by that?
Yeah, so sometimes, you'll see it in work. You necessarily don't have control of your time. Someone's telling you to do A, B, and C, D. You have these deadlines. You have to be here. You have to do this. And you kind of feel like you're not controlling your time. You're just being kind of turned around and sent in various directions. And people are telling you what to do. When you get home, you've had all this stress built up. You felt like you haven't controlled your day at all. And now you get home and you're like, well, I can choose. I'm going to eat this. And now it gives you that instant gratification. It's a choice that you've made. And I think some people sometimes that's kind of why they choose to do certain things just to kind of get control. When really you're not making probably a productive decision for yourself, and it's driven by stress and instant gratification. And obviously, food is tied to lots of things. It's tied to celebrations. It's tied to even mourning at funerals. They have buffets after and things like that. So a lot of times, our parents, if you're upset, they'll say, "Why don't you have an ice cream when you're a kid?" So you kind of then equate stress, unhappiness, and then relieving that feeling by having something to eat. And it's not because you're hungry, it's just because it's a learned behavior that you've now taken into your adulthood. And it's something that I think a lot of us don't realize we're doing, and we're all guilty of it. But those small choices, as I said before, like coming home from work, a lot of people on the drive home, it's going to be a long commute. They'll go to Starbucks or McDonald's or something, grab a hamburger or fries, and kind of just eat it while they're having that stressful drive home. And that small thing, when you do it day in, day out, year after year, it can lead to really large shifts in your health. And I think a lot of patients, you point that out. They'll say, a lot of patients will tell me like, well, I'm doing everything I've always done, and I'm not losing weight. And then I start asking some questions. So what exactly are you doing? And then often there'll be some unconscious eating that they're not realizing. And then I say, well, if you think about that, just imagine you've had that 20 times, 5 working days, 4 weeks. That's about 200 or 300 calories. You can see how over a year that small change, now just being aware of it, can lead to huge results.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? The knife cuts both ways. As you said before, just cutting out 100 calories seems like nothing, and it can make a big change in the quote unquote right direction. And then just subconsciously not realizing snacking on a few hundred calories, the pendulum swings the other way. And I appreciate that you mentioned there at the end that often this is subconscious. For those listening, I don't think that anyone is saying out loud, "Ugh, my boss was such an ass. He didn't let me make a decision, so now I'm going to go eat a Big Mac."
That's right.
I don't think it plays out like that. It plays out in a much more subtle, subconscious, and thus insidious way because you don't realize that it's happening. And I know from personally working with a lot of people in this realm, a lot of people are aware that they stress eat. Not as many people as who actually do stress eat. I think that is much higher, but there are a good amount of people who come to me and they say, "Oh man, I just need to get my stress eating under control." Like I see a link that when I'm super stressed, I lean on snacks. But I think farther and fewer in between are the amount of people who understand that they're doing what you just said, which is looking for a sense of control, a sense of normalcy, a sense of being the decision maker in their lives, because this is what we all crave, I think, as humans, is agency, as they call it, autonomy and agency, or being the driver of our lives. So all of the what we've talked about so far, you've mentioned some simple swaps and things like that that we can do, but that is what comes after. What is the starting point in terms of the internal stuff? Again, going back to the process that drives the progress, not talking about the actual food changes, right? We all know less fried food, more salad, less pizza, more whatever, the thing that's healthier than pizza, less McDonald's, more sweet green or something like that. But how do I get myself to actually do that when I've been told it over and over, but I haven't actually taken the action?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So, what I tell people, the advice I give them is I think people are not interested anymore in this whole idea of less calories in, less calories out, exercise more. Those things are obviously very important, but I think they want to understand what's driving their behavior, which is what I think you're getting at. And one of the things that I strongly encourage is mindful eating. And what mindful eating derives from mindfulness, so being present, understanding why you're doing what you're doing. So, what I encourage patients in my clinic, for example, is whenever they're about to eat, almost have a circuit breaker and ask yourself, am I actually hungry? And I really stress teaching them the difference between physical hunger and emotional hunger, and understanding those physical hunger cues for emotional hunger cues. Our bodies need energy to do whatever they're supposed to do, breathe, walk, exercise. So you need calories, obviously. You get into problems when you're taking in more energy than you need, and that's often triggered by emotional triggers. So those feelings are pretty consistent across people. So emotional hunger will come on suddenly. You've encountered a situation that was stressful or you didn't have control in this. You'll all of a sudden have that craving. You'll crave your comfort foods, which we all know what they are. It can be ice cream, it can be chocolate, whatever it is. For everyone's different, because some sort of carbo, sugar rich beverage. And you often feel guilt after eating it, and you don't have that feeling of satiety. So, a lot of patients, when they have emotional, after they eat it, they have these feelings of guilt, kind of questioning why did I eat it. Um, and whereas physical hunger cues, they're pretty. You get that empty feeling in your stomach. You feel a little lightheaded. You have less energy. It's often 4 to 6 hours after your last meal. So the first question is, whenever you eat something, I tell patients just ask themselves, "Am I really hungry?" Then I would tell them, like, just take a break, take a deep breath in, go for a walk, drink a glass of water. Lots of times, dehydration's presenting itself as making you think you're hungry. Just kind of stopping that stress that then is triggering you to want that reward, which may be whatever it is that you're trying to eat. Just putting that circuit breaker in there will allow you to often. It's not going to be 100% effective, but a lot of times it will stop you from acting on those emotional triggers. So I think that's the first step, is just start asking yourself that question. Am I really hungry? I think journaling is very important. It allows you to put down your ideas on paper. It slows down your thinking, and it helps you record what you're feeling. And that's where you can start seeing patterns when you look back and reflect on it.
Yeah, excellent tools, and I appreciate the way you laid that out. I teach a similar methodologies. Something I use with clients that is very helpful for anyone listening, similar to what you just said. Like, am I actually hungry? Is I call the broccoli test, which is just, would I eat broccoli right now?
Yeah.
Usually, the difference is an emotional craving, as you said, is for the things that we crave. A certain thing. It's a Reese's peanut butter cup. It's ice cream. Hunger is my body saying I need sustenance, and if I need sustenance, it doesn't matter where I get it from. I'll eat whatever I need to feel better.
Yes.
So taking a moment to ask yourself, would I eat broccoli? Would I eat a bowl of spinach or something like that? Or is it that I specifically want a Kit Kat? That's a good way to delineate, is this emotional eating or is this hunger? And then simply, as you said, journaling is great, but just slowing down. I challenge my clients often to just set a timer for anywhere from 30 seconds to 5 minutes, because the more distance you can put in between the impulse to eat and the act of eating, the more chance you have of your conscious, logical brain catching up. Usually, those things that we eat as you said, you feel bad after because your logical brain catches up and you remember, oh man, this isn't good for me. Oh man, I'm trying to lose weight and eating half a pizza pie probably isn't in line with my goals. Or, oh man, I have high blood pressure. Downing 2 large fries from McDonald's isn't going to help that. But when we make decisions or don't even make decisions, we just follow our emotion, we don't have a chance for that to happen. So just slowing down allows for that to at least be a possibility. As you said, Pavi, it's not 100% success rate, but you give yourself a fighting chance, which I think we often don't have in this busy go, go, go world, as you mentioned before. But something now that we're talking about those cues of, am I actually hungry? What foods do I actually need? This, I think, brings up the realm of GLP-1s. And this is something that, speaking with you, I think is important to talk about because I don't know, is it good? Is it bad? It's here, and these things are changing the world in some way. So before we get into thoughts on it, could you give me a fifth grader's breakdown of what GLP-1s are and what exactly they're doing when I take them?
Yeah, so GLP-1 medications obviously are revolutionizing weight loss. I think they were initially created for diabetic control, and one of the side benefits they noticed was weight loss. And they work through a variety of mechanisms or ways to make you eat less. So they act on your brain to kind of suppress your appetite and desire for food, really decreasing your appetite and emotional triggered eating. They also slow down how quickly your stomach, which is an organ in your abdomen, pushes food through. So as a result, food stays in your stomach longer. And as a result, you don't feel as hungry because your stomach feels full. And as a result, then you have less hunger hormones circulating. And it also has the added benefit of blood sugar control for diabetics, which leads to less fluctuation and less triggered eating. So it's very effective that way. Now, GLP-1 medications they have excellent results for the common one, Ozempic or semaglutide. Patients can lose upwards of 10-15% of their body weight, which is quite impressive. I think that what I'm finding is, and I think the studies are showing that, is that a significant portion of patients discontinue the medications. When you look at it at like 1 year and 2 years, upwards of 50% of patients will stop the medications for a number of different reasons, side effects. A lot of patients get GI side effects, constipation, nausea, vomiting, heartburn, and they can't tolerate it. Cost, they're not cheap. So, and then some patients just don't want to be in medications long term. Now, when the patients stop the medications, we do know that a significant portion of the patients regain the weight. So it's not unusual for patients to gain 50, 60%. And I've seen patients gain back almost all of it. So there's a significant regain of the weight because a lot of those feelings and desires you have return once the medications are stopped. So I do think they have a role. They're very effective. They're revolutionizing weight loss, but I don't think it takes away the need to do the deep work to change your relationship with eating, developing the correct habits and lifestyle changes. And I think it's a disservice if we start saying that stuff's not necessary because we know a lot of patients have to stop taking the medications, may not have access to it, can't afford it. There's lots of reasons that I think it's still very important to focus on mindful eating, understanding developing proper habits, and those sorts of things.
Yeah, one, I appreciate that. It's something that I think everyone is. If you don't know, so if you're not on it yourself, you know someone who is on it, and you're thinking about getting on it. I've seen statistics like something like they think 60% of Americans are going to be on it by the year like 2030 or something like that. Crazy stuff. So it's good to be educated on these things. But as you said, one, you probably won't take it forever, or most people don't, and then they gain the weight back. And we all have heard the statistics that 90% of people who diet gain the weight back. Even people who do surgeries, gastric bypass surgeries, or those type of things, many of them gain the weight back. So it points to a broader, deeper challenge or problem where if we're not changing what we actually do, the workarounds might help in the meantime or in the short term, but if they're not addressing the root cause or the root issue, eventually we see more often than not those things come back around.
I agree with that. Like I've done high volume bariatric surgery for a long time, and what I tell patients is that the surgery is a tool. It's a tool to help you lose weight, but it doesn't negate the fact that you still have to try to develop the correct habits, do the deep work to change your relationship with eating. And if you don't address those underlying reasons, we do know there's a subset of patients who gain back a significant portion of the weight. You can overwhelm any surgery.
Uh-huh.
Like they're not 100%. It's a tool, just like GLP-1. To me, it's a tool to help you. It's a very effective tool, but you have to still make the effort to understand why you're eating, what are the things that are causing you to eat, lifestyle change, introducing more movement into your life. You can't just ignore all of those things. They're still very important.
Yes, unfortunately, even shortcuts aren't really shortcuts. They only are a band-aid on a bullet hole. But you've said a few times now you have to do the deep work. There's no getting around doing the deep work. And you've kind of said what that could be, but specifically for anyone listening who's like, where do I start? What does that mean? How
Yeah.
does someone start to piece together, like, what if it's not GLP-1s and it's not eating less carbs and it's not getting bariatric surgery? What is the thing that I need to do?
Right. So in my career now, helping patients gain health through weight loss, I started to realize maybe 5, 6 years ago, I was seeing patients who we had operated on or we had had in a diet program, and they were starting to come back 5, 6, 7, 8 years, having gained back a significant portion of the weight they had lost. That's devastating when you've done something as significant as even, say, surgery and you start gaining the weight back. I found that the patients are doing really well long term were the patients who had really bought into changing their lifestyle. And I would ask them, what are you doing? What are the things? And so I realized you have to change your mindset. And then the question becomes, that's easy to say, what does that mean? So the first thing is it's not something that happens overnight. It takes time, dedicated effort. I think you have to do it in a structured way. So I created like a journal for my patients to use, which has some of the tools I think are useful. And the tools that I suggest, that one is, I think, journaling, doing it regularly, trying to understand why you're doing what you're doing. Even if you're like, well, I won't be able to figure that out. Just the act of writing down, slowing your thoughts down, trying to understand, it will reveal itself to you after 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. You'll start to understand your patterns and what's going on. I think you have to also practice mindfulness. You need to learn to be present. Nowadays, everything's done distracted. We eat distracted. We eat scrolling our phone. We eat in front of the TV. And that's the next step is you need to realize you need to learn to be present, being mindful. That in and of itself will change your life. That'll not forget about eating. It'll make you have better relationships with your family because you're actually there. You're listening, you're paying attention. And so I think I'm a strong believer in mindfulness. And mindfulness, I think, can be built through meditation. I practice meditation my whole life. I think it's good. And it doesn't have to be for an hour. It can be for 5, 10 minutes, a small chunk of time where you actually just slow down and you just listen to your body and you listen to your thoughts. And I think doing that has a calming effect and it gives you more control. I tell patients a lot of times, if you can, start doing a short meditation session 5 minutes before you eat your dinner, for example. Let all the stress out from the work, slow things down, and it'll let you be more present while you eat. I think gratitude's also very important. I think a lot of times what we do is driven by negative emotions, the stresses in our life. I think gratitude and mindfulness are tied together because when you're present, you can actually appreciate all that you have instead of focusing on what you don't have. So I think gratitude is another tool. I tell my patients to write down things they're grateful for several times a week. I think it makes you more optimistic, more positive, which I think creates the mindset to actually tackle some of the changes and habits we need to develop. And tied to that is like, affirmations. And when I say affirmations, people say, oh, what is that? I'm not going to be screaming in a mirror or something that I'm going to win. But that's not what I mean. I think it's just the one thing we can control is what we think. So you want to change how you think about yourself. And a lot of times we have self defeating thoughts in our mind. Like patients will tell themselves, well, I don't want to go to the gym because everyone's going to look at me and think I look silly because there are people there who are very strong, have muscles, and you have these ideas that have been built in your head. And then you just tell yourself, I'm not going to do it. And I tell patients, so you do a thought journal, write down the negative self talk, your self defeating thoughts that you're having, and then reframe it that people are actually going to respect that I'm going to the gym to try to improve my health because most people there probably are started at a different point where they are now. And that's probably how most people think. And I also tell patients too is that people are too focused on themselves. They're not actually thinking about what you're doing. They're focused on their own life, their own stresses. 99% of people are very respectful, to be honest, and they're gonna. So a lot of the things that go on, and that's what I mean with deep work. A lot of the things that we don't do or the changes we don't make are because we're worried about what other people think or things external to us. And when you kind of realize that that's not true, it empowers you to sort of then start taking on things.
Yes, so good. So many good tools there. I couldn't agree more. I've had the exact same experience working in this field for so long. Something I tell people often who have that fear, as you said, to go to the gym, everyone's going to look at me. I don't know what I'm doing, yada, yada. I'm like, the gym is filled with mirrors for a reason. And it's so people can stare at themselves. It is built on vanity. No one cares about you. They're looking at their own biceps, their own butts, or whatever it is. So it's like we can leave that behind. But it all comes down to shifting the mindset. And I think that this can be frustrating for people to hear because it's journaling, meditating. It seems like everything, if you peel away the layers enough, these are the answers to everything. And I think that is the case. So many of the experts that I interview, so many of the books that I read, it comes down to the same thing. And that's because when you change what's inside, the external stuff shifts as a result, just like we were speaking about before. Or when you change the root, the fruit changes as a result. So I love all of these tools, so simple. And these are the things that, although they don't seem directly linked to food choices, affirmations, or mindfulness or things like that, you will start to see your food choices change. As you just said before, if you meditate for 5 minutes before every meal, I would bet money that the way that you eat or the things that you eat would change. If you stopped eating distracted, you stopped eating in front of a phone and in front of a TV, the way that you eat or the things that you eat will change. And that's been proven, that's been studied. When we eat distracted, we eat more because we're not as connected to our satiety, our hunger cues. So people eat upwards of 50% to 100% more food than they would normally eat if they weren't distracted. So I just want to bring that up for anyone listening, because it can seem like, well, what the hell does meditating and journaling and affirmations have to do with weight loss and eating? But it has to do with everything. So I love all of those, Pavi, and I think that these are great actionable tools for people. The last two questions that I have for you are the same two questions I ask every guest. And the first is, what is the change that you want to see in the world?
Yeah, that's a really that's a big question. So I think probably the thing that I think is probably that's impacting maybe even the younger generation the most, which I think as a parent, it I'm starting to see it too, is I think that we're creating a generation of young people that can't focus, slow things down, or think. And I think that's just a reflection of technology, apps. And I think it's actually making their lives more complicated, and they're not being present anymore and actually living their lives. So I know in certain societies like Australia, they're really limiting social media now for people under 16. And I know in China, I think they turn it off after 4 p.m. I just think that we're becoming so distracted that we're losing that human connection. Sometimes I see young people sitting beside each other, not talking, but then you realize they're just texting to each other. So I think we're kind of having that loss of, I don't know if it's humanity or that sort of connection with each other, which I actually think is, I think that's probably one of the most important things to have a happy, fulfilling life, is just as I get older, you have certain things you want to do or achieve, but as you get older, you realize the most important thing in life is the relationships you have. And that's probably the most lasting and meaningful thing. And that's what people are going to remember when you're long gone. And I think technology's taken that away from us.
Yeah, I totally agree. I just actually finished reading a book called Stolen Focus by an author named Johan Hari. It's exactly about this topic, and it was super interesting and made me very upset about how much I use my phone. It's a good one if
Yeah,
you haven't if you
yeah,
haven't checked
yeah.
it out.
Sure. I know.
Yeah, yeah, it's a
Sometimes
good book.
when I have to really concentrate, I'll put it in my car.
Oh yeah, I
Sometimes.
have to. If it's near me, like again, like I just feel I touch it, like I touch it too much. I hit it. All right. Well, I appreciate that. I think that I'm right there along with you. I agree that that's one of the things that we are facing again as a society that is going to be the big challenge for us for the next decades, if not centuries to come. And the last question I have, you've already given us a lot of tools, so feel free to repeat one, or if there's anything else that you have in your toolbox. But if you had one action step that listeners can take right now today to start making any change they're trying to make in their life, whether it's weight loss or implementing any other habits, to make that a little bit easier, what could they do?
I think that I think it goes back to mindfulness. Ultimately, what determines our life are choices. And then what determines our choices, it's what we think. So I think slowing down and understanding why you're doing what you're doing. I'd say 50 to 60% of things we do are unconscious. We just do it, it's learned or automatic behavior. I think if you really want to change your life, the most important thing is to actually change how you think, and that comes to understanding why you're thinking what you do. It doesn't matter what aspect of life it is. Like if you want to be successful in business, if you want to be a healthier person, if you want to have more fulfilling relationships, I think you need to really start understanding why you're doing what you're doing.
If you're working on changing your diet, exercise, or other habits around food and fitness, you have to check out My Body Tutor. My Body Tutor is the world's leading nutrition coaching platform that helps people find their healthy weight and keep it forever through sustainable habit change. And you know, as a listener of this show, that when it comes to creating change, it's all about sustainability and consistency. And when it comes to diet, exercise, and getting in shape, My Body Tutor solves the problem of consistency through one-on-one coaching, customized plans, and daily accountability. And as a bonus for you, they're offering $50 off your first month. But what really makes My Body Tutor so unique is they offer daily accountability with a real human coach. And I know because I'm one of them. I have been working with My Body Tutor since 2020. There's so much misinformation, so much nonsense out there in the health and wellness space, but not with My Body Tutor. My Body Tutor is the real deal. They are changing lives. I've seen it, I've been a part of it, and I'm honored to continue to grow with them. And you don't have to take my word for it. Check out mybodytutor.com, where you will see hundreds of testimonials and reviews. And as a special bonus, for listeners of this show, you will get $50 off your first month. Just click the link in the show notes or go to mybodytutor.com and tell them Paul from Change Made Easy sent you in your intake questionnaire, and you'll automatically get a huge discount. And remember, they offer a money-back, risk-free guarantee, so this is a no-brainer for you. And no joke, I really do work for them. So if you want to work with me personally, ask for Paul as your tutor. Once again, tell them Paul from Change Made Easy sent you for $50 off your first month. Start with no risk and see how the power of a coach with daily accountability can literally change your life.